For over 3 centuries, the Vel'nari have stood as the architects of the Galactic Order. Their ships cut through space like silver blades. Their technology, perfected across millennia, has become law itself. They did not conquer the lesser species with cruelty alone. They conquered us with certainty, with the absolute, unshakable confidence that they understood how things worked. When humanity was brought into the fold, we were sorted into our castes like everyone else. Engineers, laborers, servants. The Vel'nari looked at us with the kind of pity one reserves for a clever pet. Oh, they recognized our ability to think, to problem solve, to adapt. But adaptation is not wisdom, and problem solving, in their eyes, was merely humans frantically patching holes in the superior systems the Vel'nari had already perfected. And so we worked. For 31 years, humanity toiled beneath the gleaming spires of the Vel'nari stations. We maintained their machines. We built their infrastructure. We followed their blueprints that had not changed, not truly changed, in almost 100 years. No one questioned this. No one, that is, except one. Her name was Dr. Sarah Chen, and she was a senior maintenance engineer aboard Vel'nari Station 7, orbiting the industrial world of Kepler 442b. By all accounts, she was exactly what the Vel'nari expected. Competent, reliable, and thoroughly unremarkable. She filed her reports. She maintained her systems. She never asked the questions that might have caused trouble. But Sarah had a peculiar affliction, you see. She noticed things. She noticed the subtle vibrations in the cooling systems that the automated sensors never quite caught. She noticed the pattern of power fluctuations in the water reclamation units, a rhythm that seemed almost intentional if reclamation units could have intentions. She noticed that the Vel'nari maintenance schedules, these perfectly calibrated sequences that hadn't changed since before she was born, left a window, a small gap, a place where something could go wrong. The Vel'nari station was a marvel of engineering, elegant, efficient, and massive. Its core systems ran on a principle of distributed redundancy. If one system failed, another would take over. The Vel'nari had anticipated nearly every possible malfunction. Nearly. Sarah spent her evenings, after her shift ended, walking through the station's lower levels, the places where the newer engineers never ventured. The archives, the old maintenance logs, the sealed-off sections that had been deemed obsolete a generation ago. And in those quiet, forgotten corridors, she found something the Vel'nari had never bothered to look for. A design document, dated 31 years ago, from the original station construction. It was written in binary code so old that the notation itself was considered archaic. The Vel'nari didn't read old binary. Why would they? They had moved past it, evolved beyond it. What Sarah found made her blood run cold. She brought her discovery to her direct supervisor, a Vel'nari administrator named Krell. She approached him in his office, a space so sterile and white it almost hurt to look at. She set the printout on his desk. Krell looked at it with the kind of disdain usually reserved for children's drawings. "This is ancient," he said, his translator rendering his vocal frequencies into human speech. "Obsolete notation. We have no need to reference it." "Please," Sarah said, and there was something in her voice. Not insubordination, but urgency. "If you'll examine the specification matrix, the redundancy check on the primary fusion containment was originally designed for a different output ratio. The blueprints were updated. Yes, but the original fail-safe. The fail-safe was updated along with everything else," Krell interrupted, not unkindly. "We Vel'nari do not make mistakes in our engineering, Dr. Chen. It is not possible. Our systems are verified by the greatest minds in the galaxy." "I'm not suggesting there's a mistake," Sarah said carefully. "I'm suggesting that in the translation from old notation to new systems, there may have been an assumption made. A very small one. A detail so minor that it wouldn't matter in the theoretical model, but in practical application under sustained load." Krell turned his back to her. Dismissal. She had been dismissed. But Sarah Chen did not stop. She had never stopped for anything in her life. Over the next 6 months, she documented everything. She cross-referenced the old specifications with the current schematics. She ran simulations in the late hours of the night, the kind of failure that could kill thousands. She compiled her evidence into a formal report. She submitted it through every channel available to her. She requested meetings with station leadership. The Vel'nari, with bureaucratic precision, reviewed her work, dismissed it, and filed it away. Then, on the 31st anniversary of the station's construction, the cascade began. It started as a tremor, barely noticeable. The Vel'nari monitors registered it as background vibration, within normal operational parameters. But Sarah knew. She felt it the way a musician feels a note slightly out of tune. She was in the hydroponics section when the alert sounded. The cooling system was failing. Not catastrophically, not yet. But the fail-safe that should have kicked in, the elegant redundancy system that the Vel'nari had guaranteed would never allow a critical cascade, had itself failed. And it had failed in exactly the way that would trigger a chain reaction through the primary systems. In 3 hours, the fusion core would reach critical temperature. She accessed the sealed lower sections. She found the original systems, the ones the Vel'nari had deemed obsolete. And in those old, elegant machines she found the path forward. The original engineers, decades ago, had not designed a single fail-safe. They had designed a series of them, nested, redundant layers of protection that the Vel'nari had gradually phased out as inefficient and outdated. But those old systems were still there, still running, still waiting. Sarah, working with her own hands with tools from 100 years past, re-established the connection between the old fail-safe protocols and the new core. It was not elegant. It was messy, analog, and utterly human, a patchwork solution that no Vel'nari would have ever considered, because it operated on the principle of distributed redundancy within distributed redundancy. Over-engineering, wasteful, inefficient. When the cascade reached its critical point, it met a wall of protections that the Vel'nari didn't even know existed. The core stabilized. The station held 8,000 lives, and for the first time in recorded history, the Vel'nari had to confront a truth they had never imagined. In the aftermath, Krell stood in the darkened control room, watching the diagnostics come back clean. His skin, normally a soft bioluminescent blue, had dimmed to nearly gray. He looked at the schematics on the screen. Sarah's work, clear and precise, showing the layer upon layer of protection she had found and reactivated. "How did you know?" he asked her quietly. Sarah looked at the engineer beside her. She was tired. 3 hours of sustained, focused labor in the depths of a dying station had worn her to the bone. But her eyes were clear. "Because I paid attention," she said. "I noticed what everyone else decided was irrelevant. I remembered what everyone else had forgotten. And I believed that there was more to understand than what I had already been told." Krell was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his translator caught something subtle in his vocal patterns. Something that might have been humility. "The Vel'nari pride ourselves on surpassing what came before," he said. "We discard the old to make room for the new. It never occurred to us that the old might have held wisdom we had not yet earned." "That's not a flaw in your species," Sarah said gently. "It's just different from how we think. Humans were not built for mastery. We're built for survival. We learn to see value in everything we encounter. Not because it's optimal, but because any piece of knowledge, any tool, any solution might be the one that saves us someday." She looked out at the vast station, at the gentle hum of systems working in harmony once more. "It took 31 years for the Vel'nari to miss something so profound. My species would have noticed in 31 hours. Not because we're smarter, but because we're desperate. We've always been desperate, and desperate creatures learn to see the world differently." As the news spread through the station, and eventually through the larger Vel'nari administration, something shifted in the galactic understanding of what humanity represented. We were not the clever mimics they had believed us to be. We were not simply adapting to their systems. We were seeing things they couldn't. We were solving problems they had declared unsolvable. We were, in our own way, proving that sophistication and wisdom were not the same thing. For the first time, the galaxy understood that perhaps, just perhaps, there was more than one way to understand the universe. more than one path to truth, and that the smallest, most overlooked member of the galactic community might carry knowledge that even the mightiest had forgotten how to see. And for the first time, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If the story of human persistence moved you, subscribe for more tales of humanity's place among the stars. Because somewhere out there, in the vast unknown, there are countless stories of humans proving that we are more than we seem, and that sometimes the greatest victories come not from power or mastery, but from simply paying attention to the world around us. Thank you for listening.